What's up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Charles Cinco.
This is Carlo Libanel.
And today is going to be a very special day because first, this is the third episode of Hookah Bout It. And on top of that, we have our first guest in here with us right now in the studio. And this is going to be dynamic, bro.
Yes.
This is going to be
I'm excited.
This is going to be, I guess, as we would say, or I would say, our first controversial topic that we're going to talk about.
Yes, most needed.
Yep.
Most needed.
Especially with what happened last year. We're going to dig deeper into this conversation with someone that knows exactly what it feels like to be in the middle ground of serving both sides. But that said, I want to introduce you guys to a gentleman that I met, and I'll give you guys a little story really quick so that he's not a stranger to you guys. And I met this guy outside of City Sports because obviously I was working out in there. And after my workout, I actually locked in eyes with him and his lovely girlfriend there a couple of times, but we never spoke until I went out after my workout session, and next thing you know, they were hovering on my Tesla car.
Yeah?
They were checking it out, and I guess he was sharing a little bit to his girlfriend that this is what a Tesla does, because I guess she doesn't know much about it. And then we just got into a conversation for 30 minutes, and next thing you know, I let them inside my car, check it out even more. And it was just a cool experience, and I got to know what he does for a living, and I thought, man, this is such a perfect time to bring him in an episode like this.
Yes.
So I'm excited for this one. So Carlo just doesn't have to say because they just met like an hour. Right?
I get to learn more about Lou.
Right.
I'm excited about that, and so it's going to be fun.
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, our first Hookah Bout It guest today is Mr. Lou Wilson. What's up, Lou?
We're making history today. How you doing? So I'm the first guest?
Yes,
you are.
You're the first official out of 3 episodes, Lou. You're the first official guest for our Hookah Bout It session. So appreciate it for being with us. I know you don't smoke hookah, but you got your own little cigar there.
Yeah, but I'm a cigar smoker.
That's how you know you got the Michael Jordan vibe, you know, like, right? But Lou,
yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit, or just the audience, a little bit about yourself, what you do for a living, and why you're exactly the type of guest that we needed today to talk about things that you've been doing for the last 20 years, plus with last year with the whole George Floyd.
My name is Ethell Wilson. My first name. My middle name is Lewis. So a lot of people, that's where Lou comes from. And when we met you, that's what my girl calls me. So she calls me Lou. So, but she knows me as Ethell. So like my work friends call me E, Big E, or Lou. So,
so I feel special.
Yeah, you're very special. When you call me my middle name, that's family. So basically, I'm originally from the East Coast, Washington, D.C. I was born and raised in the District of Columbia. I came to California, Sacramento area, my sophomore year in high school.
Right.
At the time, I was escaping corruption. And to put it mildly, like DC was, I think a year later, I left in 85, 86, they were becoming a murder capital in the USA. What did that mean?
I did not
This
know
is
that.
when the crack epidemic hit the scene.
Wow.
Right? And like DC had over 500 homicides in one calendar year, which is unheard of. And as you saw, if you look at the statistics in the history, other cities became murder capitals throughout the U.S. because of this, which was I consider also a pandemic.
That's what I was going to say,
with the drug wars and things of that nature. So I escaped that. I came out here to live with my mother's sister, my aunt, and her family in Sacramento, and finished high school and then transferred to junior college and then finished up at Davis. Before I got into what I do now, in law enforcement, I was a school teacher, believe it or not.
Wow. To make the shift from school teacher to police officer now.
Well, now you're spoiling it to everyone.
Well, he's law enforcement, right?
Believe it or not, it was an easy transition. And you know why?
Why?
Because criminals act like children. Let's think about it.
Trying to get attention.
That's already the first fact of the day.
That's the first fact of the day. And no shade. I'm just telling you how like it was an easy transition. There are other things in terms of education that I had to overcome, like the bureaucracy of education. Right? You got parents, right? You got the administration, and you got the kids, right? Kids just want to do what kids stuff though. They want to know they're going to be okay as an adults, right? And administration has their goals of what they have to accomplish. So, and the same thing when you're dealing with people who make decisions. Some feel like they're forced to make these decisions, but Some don't take responsibility. So it was really a smooth transition in dealing with people because I had the gift of gab. So I knew how to talk to people. I knew how to work with this segment. I knew how to work with parents. I knew how to work with administration. And I knew how to garner attention and what I wanted from the kids. So it was a seamless transition. To tell you a short story, when I first started, I was 30 years old in law enforcement, and I was in training. And people would come up to my field training officer and they were like, man, how long this dude been on the street? Man, he's like, he just started. But I just knew how to talk to people.
Yeah.
Communication,
which is the key.
I think I'm hearing so much like communication in every industry, whatever you are, is always key. And the fact that this gentleman right here could communicate just through based on, I guess the right word would be guts or intuition. That's the word I'm looking for.
Experience, right? So I grew up in DC in poor, impoverished neighborhoods, right? Drug induced and all that stuff. So I grew up around that. So I knew how, it's like this dichotomy. I knew how to work in this segment of the community, and I knew how to deal with people on the street. So I knew how to relate to people, which is the key in doing things, is just being able to relate. If you're in sales or whatever you do, is being able to relate to people is so important, right? Because I knew early on that, even though I'm 6'2", look like I can throw chairs, right? But I knew early on that I was going to talk my way more out of ass whooping than getting into one. Does that make sense?
That makes huge sense.
So that's key in my success and how I did things. I had command presence, right? I'm a big guy, right? I was in decent shape, right? But I understood communicating with somebody and getting them to comply was my goal more than just, I'm big, I'm tough.
Yeah. Like the
Because that only
physical
goes
stature as your advantage.
Exactly.
Because it was more than that.
Exactly. I used it when I needed it. I had command presence. I took care of myself, but at the same time, I knew that may not always work, and then you have to go to other avenues.
And that's unfortunate because there's a lot of communities out there that think physicality is how you command presence.
Yeah.
Right. And so, tell us a little bit about. When you got started in law enforcement, how was that transition from, I didn't know that about you, from being an educator into the law enforcement, and why you've been doing it for this long? Well,
let's talk a little about education. I enjoyed teaching. Very rewarding, right? It was nothing like seeing your kids in the store, right? Mr. Wilson, hey, that's my teacher, Mom.
Well, what kind of students were you
I
teaching?
taught everything except 7th and 8th grade.
Except 7th and 8th grade.
Everything, yeah. I started with a 3-4 combo. What that means is they split a class, right? Half were 3rd graders, half were 4th graders, right? Difficult. Don't ask me how we got that done, but it happens more often than not. People who teach know. I've also worked with, I'm surprised to tell you this, but it was a continuation school, if you will, or an extended learning for kids with behavioral problems. And that was tough because you had these kids with all kinds of emotional problems. And this was a K-6 program. They had an on-site school psychologist. There was a parent teaching component, right, to how they wanted to work with the parents to help them to be better parents. And so we had all these things. We had like timeout, different things. We had all kinds of resources for the kids. But it was a tough experience because you were dealing with kids that didn't have normal upbringing. Something may have happened to them, and and learning how to deal with this. We had an experienced staff, but that was tough. And then I went to high school, where I taught science and coached a little bit.
Wow, science. I would have never thought.
I know.
So you love science.
See, looks can be deceiving.
Okay, that's right. I never would have thought.
Exactly.
Well, you got the gift of gab, though. So.
Exactly. I left teaching because of the bureaucracy, to be honest with you. And they paid vittles, let's just be real, right? I had 3 jobs as a teacher.
So explain to the people what does bureaucracy truly mean for you in that standard.
There are teachers that really care, that really want to do a good job. They're working professionals, but really, let's be real, the system hasn't changed in over 100 years.
Big.
100%.
We talked about that in the other episodes.
We did.
About how the system's never changed. It's outdated.
It's outdated.
Yeah, and they think it's still going to keep working that way.
Right.
And the teachers are the ones that are getting the lower end of the deal.
Right.
Which sucks. And it's to think that we're having the teachers bring up our future. You want to invest more into the kids so that we can have a better future as a society, but yet we're still not fixing that.
Right.
It's a big problem.
What I felt like it was less education and more indoctrination.
Yeah.
That's a big one for a fact. For a fact.
I got frustrated because I was like what you're saying. I was passionate.
Right.
You know, I could motivate.
Right.
I could teach. Right. I had a heart for youth, right? Mm-hmm. Because my thing was, I was trying to save a little Ethell, a little Lewis.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Wow. I was looking for those kids that
understood that there was something more, that they needed help.
I'm selling them hope.
Right, because I think a lot of people are just more scared of reaching out for help and wanting to.
That's right.
I think I said this in one of my trainings a couple of days ago in one of my team businesses, and I said a lot of people love real people unless they're real to them.
That's right.
Like if like you know what I mean? Like the untrained mindset would be, I love you because like you're so real, but if you're real to me, I don't know if I can accept that, right? Because like that's too real. I don't know if I'm ready.
Because the truth, right? So, the truth hurts sometimes.
Yeah.
So then when you're real with somebody, then it's like, man, like why are you coming at me this way, right?
Yeah.
But it's doing right by somebody.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Because then otherwise, if you're trying to be something else, you're trying to say the nice things, and try to like cover up those things.
Right.
It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help nobody.
So then, talk to us.
So I left education and embarked upon a career in law enforcement. I was also in the reserves. So I joined right before 9/11.
Oh wow.
Yeah, April 18, 2001. 9/11 was 9/11/2001. So I joined about 5 months before
that happened.
Before that happened. Wow. You know, I was doing a lot of soul searching. I was trying to connect with my father, who was passed, who was military. It was something I always wanted to do. It was something I wanted to do right out of high school. But school life, education, family, and it was like, here was an opportunity with the reserves, and also to supplement my income as a teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm still doing my parallel in my military career, and then I started with joining the process of joining the Berkley Police Department.
And that's where you've pretty much been until today.
2002.
That's awesome. And
is that a full 20 years now?
19.
19 years.
Next year,
Coming up,
2022 will be 20.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it flew by.
If you do the math.
And it flew by.
Get out of here, man.
I looked up, it's like, damn, it's 20 years.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like now you're getting a sense of exactly where we're headed with this conversation. You know, and I feel like this is a very important piece for today, because I don't, you know, I guess big shows out there are able to have a more opportunity to have guests come on that may have a little bit more background, but for us, obviously, we're just regular people. This is the best we could provide for you.
Right.
But at the same time, this is a conversation from, I guess you'd say, the middle class and the lower class. Because what media would probably tell you is, or show you, is a higher class conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, which
relatability.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not the truth, not real, and not as genuine as you would get down to actually people in the trenches, experiencing all that stuff.
But it's as real as their experiences.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But I want to switch the gears up really quick again.
Go ahead.
COVID happened. 2020 February.
Yeah.
It's still here, right? Like I probably mentioned the first episode. It started with Kobe dying, 26th of February.
Yeah.
That's when you got a sense of feeling of like things are not looking great for 2020.
You guys must be Laker fans. I got it. Okay.
No, I'm not a Lakers fan at all. No. Don't get me wrong. I am not a Lakers. I'm not a Lakers fan. I got to make that.
All right, I'm just saying.
For the editing piece, zoom in on the camera and say I'm not a Lakers fan at all. F the Lakers. I'm just kidding.
No. But long live Kobe. I got it.
But when that did start, you got a sense of feeling that maybe 2020 was tilted a little bit. And then March, everything shut down.
Yep.
We've talked about it already in our first episode of how that affected your life. But I want to kind of talk this about your personal life as well, a little bit with your work too.
Yeah.
What was the adjusting period for law enforcement during that COVID
really
season?
Well, one, we were deemed essential.
Right.
Which means we're still going to go to work.
Right.
We're still going to do the things we normally do. There was a lot of, we're not where we are today, right? There's a fear of the unknown, right?
Right.
You don't know what to expect. We don't know what this stuff is. We still got to go to work. I'm in a specialized unit. I'm in the traffic bureau. I ride a motorcycle.
Oh, that's cool. So you're who I see sometimes.
Yeah. Slow down.
Yeah. I fear for the ones with the motorcycles, man. I know.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're getting a ticket.
Yeah. You're getting a ticket. If I pull you over with a motorcycle, is it really?
Mom is getting a ticket. It's just what it is. Well, here's the thing. What people don't realize is officers have discretion. And growing up in my community, I didn't see that discretion a lot of times, right? Okay, so for example, there's spirit of the law, right? And there's letter of the law. Spirit of the law is like, you did that, hey, don't do that again. Letter of the law is you did that, and you need to go see a judge about it, and here's your fine sentence or whatever.
Right.
People usually in impoverished communities feel like they only receive the letter of the law.
Yeah.
And not the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's big.
So you get that. So you get that kind of situation. So when I learned that and I got this job, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm like, we have discretion, you know, in that, you know, some things they may not understand. Like, for example, my times at, when I was a school resource officer, different things, right, affect different communities, right? When I was coming up, we didn't have cell phones, right? Young people do. Some people grew up with YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah.
At like in middle school. Right. I didn't Facebook when I was grown. Right? 09 or whenever that was, right? So so there's laws, right? Okay. So child pornography, right? For example, right? It's child pornography laws that was meant for a pervert to catch someone doing something or harming children, right? What it did, well, watch this. When we're talking about spirit of law, letter of law, right? Justice is blind. What it did not account for is that high school students would be taking pictures of themselves, provocative pictures, and sending them to people. And what these kids don't understand is that they're minors, and that's considered in the law, child pornography.
Yeah.
That is a great.
Do you see what I had to do, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, whoa, right? And so you send a picture, unbeknownst to you, you're underage, you know that, the person receiving underage, you just
Yeah. Oh my
transfer.
God.
This is a whole.
So it's a whole different learning curve, man. I had to
So
go
even
through.
for us,
right?
like as just regular civilians, like.
And so can you imagine dealing with parents, and then what happens with those pictures? Some people with others, whoever the posing person, use it to their advantage. I'm going to show other people, distributing more,
Oh my God.
right? And then the person's like, well, you know, the parent is like, you know, what I learned is parents want blood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that? Like, you know,
They want justice.
justice right now, right? It's like, they can't do this to my son or daughter, right? And they're like, hey, hold on. You have to manage expectations. Your son or daughter sent that.
Right. It wasn't anyone asking for it. It could be released.
And so I had to write reports, but I had to write it and submit it so that the DA, the juvenile DA, would understand these are kids.
Right.
Yeah.
The law wasn't intended for kids to be using these devices as such to communicate or for acceptance. Deep, right?
That is deep.
Fucking deep. You could cuss, by the way, if you want.
Okay, I didn't know. You didn't tell me. You didn't give me any parameters. Because you know, in our job, I didn't before his job, but I cursed like a sailor, right? But so that, you get what I'm saying? So education and teaching, and then helping people to understand both sides, and like, I gotta write this report. Yeah, you gotta knock that off. You can't do that. You can't be in possession of that. And watch this, even as a parent, I had to deal with that with my own kids, right? And you're like, where'd you get this picture on your phone?
Yeah.
You can't have that, right? Well, who is that? How old is that person? Parents, look at your kid's phone.
That's big.
I think it's just like the combination of like being a parent.
Just, you see what I'm saying? Being aware.
Yeah, right.
And then educating and knowing what spirit of law. I'm not going to, with due conscience, charge a minor for being in possession of child pornography when they're kids with these devices that, right? I mean, can I level with you guys, right? Yeah. So in my day and age, right, if a girl wanted to do something with you or a guy, right, you just did or you didn't. No, the girl said, no, I'm not, don't do that. Or guy said, I'm not doing it, whatever. But now, to pacify what I learned, kids were like, I just send you a picture. I don't gotta do nothing with you. Deep. It was deep for me. It was like, whoa. It blew me away. Like, shit. Like, this is the thinking now, the advancement.
Right.
But the laws are not caught up with that.
It's not meant for it, yeah. Have they ever adapted at all?
I've been away from schools for a minute, so I'm just giving you an example of spirit of law, letter of law. Would you prosecute this minor for that? To the extent of you would some guy who's hiding behind a computer screen, or to seek victims to do harm to them?
That's crazy. Wow.
Spirit of law, letter of law.
Yeah.
And then to continue off to that conversation of like COVID, you
Yes,
know,
sir.
with
Yeah.
law enforcement, was it? Ooh, my hiccups are bad right now. Was it any different from serving pre-COVID versus?
Yes, I'm gonna tell you why, because it was.
I mean,
So I work
guessing the
in
was
Berkeley,
clear,
right? Which is Berkeley's a medium-sized city.
Right, Asian town.
Asian town, right? Whatever you want to call
Asian
it. But it's a mix. Berkeley's actually a melting pot, right? I see a lot of different cultures, but just imagine that. Imagine what 60, 90,000 commuters coming in that city every day for the Cal campus, and that place looking like ghost town.
That's crazy.
That was phenomenal to me. Driving on the freeway, knowing it would take me to get out here an hour.
To go to Berkeley.
End of the day, come leaving work, and I'm getting back here in 30 minutes.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That was like, it was eerie.
Right.
Right, and then seeing it in the city. But then watch this, just talking about human behavior, right? So you would think, right, there would be less collisions. No.
Really?
Because less people drove crazier.
I didn't even think.
Where are you going? What's the rush?
I didn't even think about that.
Right?
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
we even had a road rage incident where someone's life was taken. Now, there was nobody on the roads, but some of that could have been a pandemic, right? And just people on edge and just some words exchanged, but someone lost their life. But yeah, it was a challenging time, and then we were getting through it. And then George
that's
Floyd.
where I wanted to kind of transition to. I know you experienced it. I don't think I know anyone that actually went through it. But tell the audience how that happened, when you found out, how were you actually feeling, and just the precaution that people really need to take seriously.
In terms of
The COVID. Yeah. And
it was just learning about it, and you just start watching certain things, right? Like, I remember go back. Remember, it was like the Warriors was only accepting 1,000 fans. So it was like it was like these numbers, right?
Yeah.
It was like these dwindling numbers, and like they went from that, and people, well, I'm here and I'm coming to the game and blah blah blah, and then next, went from that to like I'm getting ready for like March Madness. Like, there's no way, there's too much money in the line, right? They're gonna cancel this thing, and like for the first time, right, we didn't have March Madness, man, and I'm like going through withdrawals, right?
I need to watch it.
My oldest son was born on March 17th during March Madness, right?
wow. Okay.
So just imagine, man. I was like, yeah, basketball, I ain't gotta go to
In the
work.
hospital, you're
Push! Push!
Put it on TV, man. Put it on TV.
You're not helping. I am. The game, but it's March Madness, man. This stuff starts at 9 a.m., man. All day basketball.
don't understand.
They don't understand that, man. We little boys. Just leave us alone. Just push. Right? It was interesting, man. So, yeah, March Madness. So, yeah, it was just, at the time, we didn't know we were living in history, right? You don't know, right? You just see this happening. I did see a change in people's behavior, right? The less tolerant, a little impatient, scared, right? Afraid, right? People were dying of this stuff. Remember, then New York kind of took the lead. Remember that?
Yep.
It was like, whoa, what the hell is going on, right? Like, it was like, don't leave your house, right? It was like, it was crazy, man. And I'm hearing, wash your hands, protect yourself, and then this thing started happening, right? So things are shut down, and then George Floyd happened, and that was pulverizing, because when George Floyd occurred, you got to remember, we didn't have the Masters, right? Football, we didn't have coming up on the cusp of the NBA final of playoffs. We didn't have talk about March Madness. We had the Super Bowl that did go through, right? We didn't have all these. We didn't have concerts. We didn't have the comedy shows, our lifestyle, the movie theater stuff, where stuff that where you could just not care.
Right.
You could tune out, and all we had was this incident happening on television, and because the world, not just the U.S., not just Cali, not just
the world was tuning in.
Everybody, it was nothing else to do.
Right.
But to tune in. So for the first time, people of color always been saying, police treat us like this. Been like this, right? Since Rodney King, right? You guys remember Rodney King? They've been saying that. We're like, nah, man, it ain't happening. Because other people's experiences don't have had that same experience with law enforcement.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And first of all, we just took a 5-minute break because first of all, I got a hiccup, so it's still here. Pardon me. But at the same time, let's continue this conversation. Let's finish this off strong. During the break, Carlo wanted to ask a specific question to Lou.
Yeah.
That I feel like could bring a lot of attention, into this topic. Yeah. But at the same time, before you ask the question, I really just want to make sure that the audience understand this. One of the main reasons why we have Lou in here is because he could be the middle ground for a lot of minorities, but also serving a lot of, obviously, the law enforcement, and this could give us an insight. Because we hear so much in the news about the insight of civilians, how they think about law enforcement. But I think it's very rare that we could come down and bring down law enforcement and be one with the civilians and have an open conversation.
True.
So this is very important. Not just for us, but really for you guys who are watching. So, yeah, go ahead, Carlo. What's the question?
Sure.
So, what I love what Lou was talking about earlier was perspectives. And we talked about it in some previous episodes too. And you know, Lou, I definitely want to get that on video, on recording, to get your perspective on it. You know, you're sharing us about, you know, accepting other people's premises in order for us to go. So definitely share, touch up on that. And let the audience know what they need to understand.
So look, I learned early on in my career that I had the ability and the power to make decisions to affect people's lives, not just their lives, but their families' lives. Right. And I didn't take that lightly. You understand what I'm saying? Now I was going to do my job, but I had to be understanding of that. And I feel like, as those in law enforcement, I'm big on giving back, right? Because you're dealing with communities that don't trust law enforcement for whatever reasons. And when I tell people, I tell young officers, man, their feelings are valid. Their experiences and their feelings are their experiences. Yeah. Period. Yeah. Right? You can't say what they're experiencing is not true. Right. It's what it is.
It ain't yours.
It ain't yours. Right? Understanding that, it was important for me to, I wanted to be the type of cop that if I did something wrong, whether I committed a crime, whether I did a traffic violation, or whether I committed some heinous crime, I would want to be treated with dignity and respect. And that's what I set the purpose to do in law enforcement, for real. Because the bottom line is that's someone's child, that's someone's daughter. And that's the thing, you know, people say, well, what is it about your job that's different? What I have to say to put it in a nutshell is that I want you to think about a person in your life that you admire, that you enjoy, you respect. Grandma, auntie, father, brother, whatever, right? Picture that person and just imagine Officer Wilson have seen that person maybe at their lowest, where you have never seen that. I'm talking doctors, lawyers, teachers, professionals. And life, what is life? Life is the shit you don't see happening, right? It's the driving down the freeway at 80 and you get a flat tire. What are you gonna do? You get it? Life. And life happens to all of us, right? It's the bump in the road, it's the shit you don't see coming. And experiences and circumstances. And I am contacting that people. I am contacting grandma. You get what I'm saying? I'm contacting auntie. I'm talking about people that you revere. Just imagine that, and I'm seeing everybody, maybe at their lowest, maybe in a position where they're embarrassed, uncomfortable. Yeah. You see? And so, as in law enforcement, that's the dichotomy of this job, where we are in everybody's business. Can you imagine that? You know, like if I come to your house and you're fighting with your significant other, that's no longer your house. That's a scene that I must manage. Now, for me, coming from back east and having roots in the South, I respected all adults, right? I was just like, even if you were slightly older than me, you were an elder to me. And so coming in these people's homes, and now I'm managing a scene. Grandma, have a seat. Sir, I'm separating people. That was a different concept for me. I wasn't comfortable in that authority. You understand what I'm saying? I had to learn to be comfortable and understand that this authority was given to me to keep peace. That's our primary job. Keep peace. You see what I'm saying? So just understanding that and dealing with that and learning that and learning how to talk to people who are embarrassed, who are uncomfortable, right? And I have to stop somebody, hey man, you fit the description. And they hear it all the time, right? But like really but you got on a black jacket. I'm serious, like they say they had glasses. Like I'm really trying to, And then watch this. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. A lot of shit that we do is complaint driven. These are phone calls. Yeah. This ain't some shit I made up and just like, oh, I'm gonna stop that dude.
Right.
That's a call for service. People don't get that. So really, it's what? It's the public's perception of things that they believe are happening. Like, for example, I'm an emphatic person. I'm loud, right? I like to talk loud, like, and they see that, and I'm talking to my girl about something. They may thinking I'm arguing with her. Yeah. Somebody that drive by and see that, and they thinking I'm.
They don't understand.
You see what I'm saying? They misunderstand the situation. So, and then we got to come and make sure it ain't what it is. Yeah. So, anyway, does that answer your question though?
No, this speaks volumes. Can I just be honest? Like, sure. I think culturally too at the same time, I think when other cultures come across other cultures, my background, I'm Filipino, and I was obviously born in the Philippines. And in the Asian culture, there's a lot of misunderstanding of different cultures. And let's just talk about something specific. Can I be specific?
Please.
When we see, or when our culture and traditions doesn't understand another. Seeing African American culture, for example, they think it's just being loud and rowdy, but they don't know the actual story that's going on in there, right? That's where perspectives kind of clashes. Yeah, and that's why maybe some cultures are like, no, that their kind, right? I hear that shit all the time. Their kind, we don't, mess with them, because I'm like, no, you just don't know this perspective, full perspective. And I feel like, and I can say this respectfully, being a cop, being a law enforcement is almost like that is your culture.
That is a culture.
Right, that is your culture. Now, can I ask this? Yes, sir. Before we move on to the big topic. Sure. Now, I understand I'm in business, and we're both in business, and we understand that in any industry, it's led by a leader, right? Every industry is led by something. Correct. So, can I ask this? Is your the office that you go to, is that what you call office?
Subdivision?
Station that you report to, right? Is the culture impact in there very open? Because we see in movies, in law enforcement, it's very tough, very gritty. That's what we see in movies, especially if there's a cultural imbalance. White folks, black folks, there's still a separation. Is what we see in media, is it what we see, or based on your experience, is it what we see?
No, and TV's bad for that.
That's what I'm saying. Okay, that's why I wanted to ask this. That's why I wanted to ask this, because I really want to make this bridge for the audience. Right. Yeah. That hey, not all cops are bad.
Look, I can't tell you how many times people like, man, when you get somebody hard in industrial prints, and like, yo, that's TV, yo. Right. It's TV, man. It doesn't work that way, right? And then people like, well, I know they did it. I'm like, it ain't what we know. It's what we could prove. That's a hard thing for people to swallow. I get it. I have inclination. I'll be like, yeah, they did it, right? You did it, but it's what I could prove, right? That's the hardest part. So we have to spend time sometimes managing expectations, right? Like a lot of people don't realize, like a homicide case could take 5 years to be resolved. That's why they say not guilty until proven. That's right. It takes 5 years, or on average, unless the person pleads out. But if they're fighting it, they lawyer up and they going through the pit, man, it could take 5 years for conviction. So it's really helping people to understand that, and what we do, and managing, expectations in terms of,
the whole R. Kelly situation that I could think about. That's the only thing I can think about. Like, it's been years of accusations.
Oh, yeah.
Years. But some people know he did it, but it's just the proof.
Some people did, right. And then think about it. Let's talk about that. R. Kelly, he has support.
He has power.
He had power. He had people. He wasn't picking these girls up at the hotel, at the airport. He had crew, right? He had people doing it, right? So it's a lot there. It's a lot of understanding stuff. Not saying that stuff didn't happen. And what we all know, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? There's more talk of it, more likely than not, then it's probably happening, right? No doubt. People, they see things like that, and they see CSI and they think it's that simple, like, man, this goes to a lab, and this is gonna take weeks, and and sometimes I'll bring people out to print, but the dust for prints, but they may get it partial, they may not. The person may have wore gloves.
This is a great conversation.
Yeah, it's a lot that goes into what we do, and then watch this. I've spent 3-4 hours on a report, and the DA said, they don't say, hey, great report, thank you for all your hard work. No, they just be like, we're not charging, right?
Damn.
But it's not an attaboy thing, right? I did my job, like, and that's another thing. My role as a police officer is to say, I'm the enforcer of the law. I'm not the punisher side. I'm not the punishing side of law enforcement. The punishing side is the DAs, right? The judges, the COs. That's the one who tell you when you can take a shower, and when you can wash your ass, and when you can go to sleep, and when you can watch TV, and who you can go visit. I'm not the punishing side. Where I feel in my job, where we got out of it is that we look like the punishers.
Right.
We're just enforcers. Now, we do need to use force, a reasonable amount of force, to overcome and resist to effect an arrest. Understand that, right? But when we get to the punishing side, what we saw with George Floyd, right, and other places, Kenosha and all that stuff, then it looks like it puts us in a place that really is not our description. That's not even our job. We're the enforcer.
So now let's talk about that. This is what we're here for.
My perspective, but go ahead.
This is what we're here for. That was a great question. So let's talk about this. You mentioned George Floyd a couple of times.
Yes, sir.
Now, obviously, injustice in America has not been anything new. History says it. School still talks about it in history. Being an educator, you know this.
Yeah.
I certainly learned it, in school.
Right.
But you know what the funny thing is, before we get into this, is like being an immigrant.
Yes.
When we used to talk about in the Philippines, in America, I used to always think of African American people, not white people. Because to me, my figures that I saw growing up was Michael Jordan, Tracy McGrady, that's my favorite player of all time.
Wow, nice. Good dude, he's solid.
Right.
If he can stay healthy, oh my God.
Oh, that's right. He could have been the GOAT and story.
Him and Grant Hill.
That's what I'm saying.
It's bad.
We got to talk basketball and down low.
We can do it all day.
But we will. But at the same time, like, when I came here, it was very surprising, and growing up too in high school, it was very African American dominated. Racism to me didn't exist unless if it's towards me because I'm Filipino, and I heard all names back then. Oh, you're Manny Pacquiao, whatever it is, and you eat dogs, and that's the racism that I got. But I never felt that towards the culture.
And keep in mind, kids can be cruel.
Kids are cool and honest.
And honest.
And you know what I mean?
From their perspective. Does that may not be true?
Because that's their world.
Right, that's their world.
That's what I'm saying, right? And so now, like, being an adult and seeing all this come into fruition the last few years, and all these incidents from Breonna Taylor, and back then, what's his name? Fruitvale Avenue?
Oscar Grant.
Oscar Grant, right?
I worked those protests, both of Meserly
See?
as well as Oscar Grant.
And I didn't know that. We're going to talk about that too. But to get to my point is that racism to me never existed for other people because it was only towards me, because I'm a minority, right? And so it was very surprising for me to know that injustice was still going on between the black community and the white community, with years of the slavery being expired, but the effects of it is still long term. So the main question of why I brought you here is, how is it being in the law enforcement, but also serving a community that is very misunderstood and misunderserved? And with the whole, I feel like I could say this, but with the whole George Floyd happening, I think it was the boiling point of a conversation where now it really has to be black and white that racism does exist. Togetherness has to happen. That's why we're contributing somehow with this small podcast. But talk about that experience, serving 20 years.
So 20 years on the job, growing up in DC. When I grew up in DC, DC had a nickname known as the Chocolate City. DC was 80% black. Okay, so I grew up with different experiences compared to kids that may have grew up in Oakland. I grew up seeing black police officers, black cab drivers, black doctors, black lawyers, black teachers. I grew up in that, right? I grew up in that environment. And I saw lower income, impoverished black folks, and I saw middle class and up to do, right? Coach John Thompson. Right. Yeah. Hoya Nation, man, he was black coach, in a tough league. The Big East was like, back in the day, was like the junior NBA. It was what the SEC is to football. You understand what I'm saying? And so, growing up, in that environment, and being around people of color and having my experiences, and then to get in this job called law enforcement, and then to realize that, Charles, I was no longer black.
Oh, that's what I was gonna put. That's what I was gonna say.
Dude, that was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
I was like, what? I listen to
Serving
rap,
the enemy.
right? You know, right? I'm like, I hang with people. I'm like, man, I got partners I grew up with. What?
That must have.
So I was no longer black, I was blue. That was hard for me. So, and then feeling the experience of, watch this, not feeling fully accepted by my white counterpart officers on the job. And then in the community I serve, being called a sellout, Uncle Tom, and all this stuff.
Home.
That's my life.
Right.
That was my life, man. Like, wow, like, I'm in the middle. That was tough, bro. That was stress.
Talk about like the sense of when people go through experience. Here's what I know: like there's some sort of swallow moment where you have to swallow something internally to
and accepting
get through
it.
the day. What was that like swallowing moment for you? Like, what did you have to accept that most people won't understand unless they're in your position?
Well, let me go back to how I got into law enforcement. Now, growing up, I grew up in impoverished neighborhoods, drug selling. You know, drug dealers took care of me. My mother was on heroin, strung out, fucked up. You know, and those people that we looked down on, those people, they saw I was from the hood, but I wasn't street. You gotta understand it's a difference, right? You can be from the hood, but you can be street. Street is like you into the hustle, you into everything was wild street. It was robbing, pimping, pandering, selling dope, whatever it is. That's street. I went to private school, but I was in the hood, and people saw that. People could see that in kids. Back in the day, that was a code and ethic to the shit, right? It was like, if people saw that you was about something, they wouldn't let you dibble in this life. You see? So I had people like that saw me, that saw potential in me, that was like, nah, you ain't gonna let you do this out here. You're gonna go to school. So my mom was, one time I came home, my mom was locked up, and I ain't had no food. I was in an apartment by myself. And they fed me. They made sure I had bus fare. We didn't even have hot water in my house.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I showered at PE.
Wow.
I'm just telling you, man, I gutter. Like, and then escaping that, and then realizing that people my age that still stayed in that, didn't have family like I had, an opportunity to just be a student in California, didn't make it. Ended up in jail, and that would have been me. I was right there. All it took was one decision, one choice, and
It has
you know, so dealing with that, and then when I decided on becoming a law enforcement official, and I had to rectify my childhood, like, and I had a conversation with God, if you will, and it was like. And he had explained to me, like, what we were talking about before during the break, like, listen, your people that went through this and was doing things, we view the cops as stopping us from surviving. Like, cause right, our choices were, we had to sell drugs. We had to steal. We had to boost food from the grocery store. We were poor, right? We were, you know, most of our parents was on dope or whatever, or selling whatever, right? So to survive. So, and God had to help me understand, like, those things happen, and it wasn't that those cops were doing anything bad. They were trying to keep order, but at the same time, you thought that the people you were around thought that those were the only choices you had. And I had to rectify that within myself before I could do what I do. And I had to accept and go, you know what? I got it, thank you. But I was like, you know what? That's when I decided I can be the type of cop that I want to be, how I want to be approached if I did do something wrong. If I'm approaching someone's granny, I'm gonna treat them with respect. I'm gonna treat them with love and dignity. That's somebody's child. I've taken people to jail, man, they thank me. Officer Wilson, thank you, man. I'm like, what's going on, man? What's wrong? Man, I could tell you care. I could tell you ain't talking to me like you looking down on me, because I wasn't. And when I would tell people, I say, hey, look, man, you know, you can put this behind you. It's isolated incidents. You just got to make some changes in your life. I would talk to people like that. And they would thank me. I've taken away their rights. I've towed their cars, right? But they got, and that's what confirmed in me how I was doing it was right. I was doing it how it needs to be done. You see what I'm saying? And there are a lot of cops that are like me, that had similar experiences. And because I had that background, because I didn't grow up with a silver spoon, because I was poor, because I was around drugs, because I did see people, they used to call them jump outs, and the cops used to come and jump out on people on Thursdays. I swear to God, it was like every Thursday. Like they would set up stings and have people sell dope to people or buy dope, and then they knew who to go get, and they chased that person or whatever. And I saw this growing up, so I was like, we thought that's what we had to do. Because we thought those are our only choices. And what I learned is desperate people will have desperate measures. So if you desperate, you're gonna do whatever you think is desperate mean. And I would talk to these kids, I'm like, man, look, okay, you say you gotta do this because you gotta feed your family, right? But if you get locked up, who gonna feed your family? So it can't be that. It can't be that. It's like, that's just the only thing you've accepted. And I'm saying, man, I see better for you. I mean, hang in there. And I leave the jail, and I see them on the street, and they may tell me, they may have a praise for, hey man, Will, I'm doing it, man. I got a job, I've been training and blah, blah, blah. That's my job, I've done my job. I'm on to the next case. That was my mentality, is to treat everybody with respect. Now watch this. That wasn't always received by my counterparts. I'm a big guy, right? And people are like, man, you too soft, man. Like, soft, like, okay, so what am I supposed to be? Like, where is it that cops are supposed to be assholes? I don't understand that. Where's that written? They didn't tell me that in training. I didn't get that in the academy.
Is that part of the description? You gotta be an asshole.
You gotta be an asshole? I ain't. I'm a teddy bear, but I could be a grizzly. You know what I'm saying? You understand what I'm saying? Like, who do you want? So you give people choices. You want Teddy or do you want Grizzly?
Choices.
It's choice. And if you give people choices, a lot of times out of 10, when you sizing a big motherfucker like me, they're like, shit, man, I don't know. This big motherfucker might can go. They got to make a choice. You help them to make the choice. Instead of I come like this at you like this and I'm staying here at level 10, where's there to go after level 10? Friction. That's the only place there's to go. So I started one. I'd be talking to people, they'd be mad, they'd be yelling, and I'd just be whispering. So I just need to drive like what shit people saying.
The complete opposite.
I just start whispering to them.
Yeah, then they start lowering their level, right?
They lowered it, I bring them down.
Right.
And I've seen where I've had people where there's a rapport, and then some Joe Blow, one of my coworkers, come up, and they elevate them right back up. Right. And I'm like, dude, like, step over there. Right. We had this, we good. Code 4, don't come over here. Code 4 is mean no more further assistance, we're good. And you've had to, I've learned that, but I learned that's what works for me. I've learned how to work with people in that regard. You see? So that's why I'm not a firefighter, because fire has a voice. You know what I said? Go for it. You know what I said? That's why I'm not a firefighter, because fire has a voice. I'm scared of fire. I'm scared to death of fire, but people, I ain't scared of people. I feel like I can reach anybody. That's just me. You see what I'm saying? And if not, I'm gonna get the resources so we can help them calm down. Some people are in crisis or whatever they're in. I feel like I have that calming voice. I can get to them. But fire, that's a whole I'm scared. I'm running. Joke, but get what I'm saying? So I had to rectify that within myself before I could do this job. And then to come on a job and I had that epiphany moment when I was like, what happened was like I called the IAB, Internal Affairs Bureau, right? And this dude said that I looked at the charges against me. I was discourteous, and I was discrimination. I was like, what? And I have this power of 30, but I'm like, what did I do? I'm like, I didn't even. It was eye-opening. It was eye-opening for me. Wow. You know, it was eye-opening for me, and it's eye-opening for me too. At times when I would really be genuine trying to help people, but from their basis and experiences, they couldn't see the help that I was providing. Right. And that's not a bad thing on them. It's just, that's just the experiences, right? Just like.
I think I think it's just because like some people don't want to accept the help because they never know what help looked like.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I think part of the whole depression and anxiety purpose, I'm big in mental health. And I think it's just because like you don't understand what help actually looks like, or first you don't even want to open up to be able to get help.
Receive it.
And so with this whole, George Floyd.
Real quick, let me tell you about my take on Trayvon Martin. You know what bothers me the most as a police officer? That a kid from his neighborhood, going from Miami. Let's picture the dichotomy of that situation, right? Just, we're quarterbacking, like we're talking hoops. Monday morning, right? The day after, man, you thought Jordan should have done it. He should have took that last shot, right?
Right.
So we sitting there, I'm looking at the situation. It sounded like this kid was living with mom. Dad had moved on. Dad was in Sanford. Dad had a new girlfriend or fiance. I think she may have had a kid, or he had a brother, stepbrother, whatever situation. He wasn't doing like most kids. And watch this. One thing about kids, I expect kids to be manipulative. I expect kids to cry and have tantrums when they don't get their way. That's what kids do. And I expect them to do shit to challenge authority because they're learning about themselves. Because they're trying to figure out, am I gonna be right? Am I gonna be okay in society? They don't know. They don't know. So they're learning, and they're ruled by the amygdala section of their brain, which says it's ruled by emotion, which means, and I learned all this from the SRO shit. I went to class. Remember, I'm a professional, so I'm always training. And then it takes time to get them from the amygdala section of their brain, which rules emotion, which says, I gotta have on Stan Smith to be cool. Because if I don't wear that shit, I'm not cool. And the kids are gonna tease me, or I gotta have my hair a certain way, right? So you got kids dealing with that, and they're not at the prefrontal cortex, which for men doesn't develop till we're 25, but we're prosecuting kids for shit that they do at 15, 16 as they're adults. And the brain ain't even fully developed. That's a whole nother sidebar. Let's just put that right there. Back to Trayvon. So he's a young youth, he's struggling. He's a handsome little young man. He's going through shit, and his mom say, you're gonna go see your daddy, right? Because you out of control, right? He needed some guidance. That's what men do. That's who we are, right? And she puts him in an environment, and it's All-Star Weekend, right? And he want to talk to his little cutie pie back home, and it's raining that night. So I'm gonna go to the store. He got his hoodie on, right? And you got this dude who feels like wherever he's on, he's been drinking, and he's like, these blacks ain't gonna get away with this, because they had a string of burglaries and all this stuff, and he racially profiled the wrong kid.
Right, he did. Zimmerman, right?
Zimmerman. Yeah. George Zimmerman, right? Is it George Zimmerman?
George, yeah.
What bothers me about that was that, from this kid's perspective and experience, somebody's following him or chasing him. It wasn't an option for him to call the police from where he's from. That bothers me for what I do. Because had he had that choice, man, somebody follow me, some crazy follow me. Hey, 911, man, some dude follow me, I'm up here visiting my dad, I'm new to the area, blah, blah, blah. We would have had what? His perspective. Instead of this perspective, the media showed that he was a kid that was struggling to find himself, and he took these pictures throwing gangs and with whatever he had, and that's what they want to focus on. Like, see, he's a bad kid. That's why this happened to him. No. He was like most kids. He was like most kids how we were. Misguided, misdirected, needed direction. But that wasn't an option for him. That has to change. Because had that phone call been made, whoa, hey, sir, Mr. Zimmerman, stand down now. I'm on the phone with the victim right now. Different perspective, right? That kid may be alive today. That's hindsight. I'm not saying to be true. I'm just telling y'all what I struggle with and what I do. That you have segments of the community that don't see us as their protector. That's a problem.
That's a big problem.
That's a big problem in what we do.
Yeah, man, that's huge. When it comes to help, right?
Help.
You want to let people understand and know that you got their back, you got their support and everything.
Some people feel that way.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Our white counterparts feel that way.
Yeah.
And they're more the ones that tell me on the street, officer, thank you for your service. I ain't getting that from a black person sometimes. Some. The people that know me. But a lot of times they don't, when they see that they're afraid, they're withdrawn. They're like, this is the question that's in their mind. Is he a good cop or is he a bad cop? But the counterparts is like, and I get that from some white counterparts. Some white people will be like, pig, fuck you. I get that too. That's a greeting in Berkeley.
You fucking pig.
Right?
Oh my God.
So that's
Thank you, sir. Have a nice day.
So that's one real thing we get from the movies. That's one thing that they got accurate. You fucking pig.
That's real. That's real. But then some is love. But you give my point. But on the whole, we have more people at times when they do call because they do need us, they're so frustrated that if most of our cops are not patient with that interaction. They're not patient with how they talk, how they're excited, and then it gets into these arguments, and it's like, look, they're just expressing themselves. Let them get it out. And they're usually what? They wouldn't even call you.
I would love for you to be my cop all day.
I'm a personal cop.
No, for real, because that's a cop that understands
Both sides
and human psychology and takes the time to actually understand just being a human. I think that's huge.
It's huge, man.
Because
bread and butter what we do.
I was gonna ask this. I feel like there's some sort of boiling point now with the George Floyd. Talk about what maybe you've had to endure in terms of racism and being a cop, and how this George Floyd event kind of switch, or did something switch? Did something had like a paradigm shift in terms of the law enforcement community, or have you seen anything change, or has nothing changed?
Well, I think.
Sorry to cut you off. Last, because the reason I'm asking is because there's been a lot of videos about cops now standing down with the movement.
Right.
Has that impacted the community overall without the cameras?
Listen, let me say this. If you are a Joe citizen and you do what you're supposed to be doing, you have nothing to fear from us. If you are doing something that you know you ain't, okay, you should look over your shoulder. That's part of it, right? But in terms of what you're saying is like, but in terms of it has changed with the people, because now people are like aware. But what I'm concerned about is that people see all cops as the George Floyd cops, and that's not the case when we have, watch this, over 600,000 law enforcement officials in the USA. Can I tell you the countless number of contacts we have with people that don't always end in those situations? But of course, it's a popular subject when one does, especially when there's a white cop and a black male victim or black female. You see? So that sells, that's news for people. And that pushes that agenda that this is what's happening. Not saying it's not, but there are tons of more contacts. Like on a given day, man, I'll stop 10 cars a day.
Right.
Think about that. I work 4 days a week. That's 40 people I make contact with a day. And sometimes I'll make 2 stops at one time. You know, so we good like that on motor. That's how we do. Flag you, hey, stop. And then get your information. I do 2, 3 cars at one time. But that's how we do it, right? But you get what I'm saying? So you got that concept of the public in terms of like what they're experiencing, they now are, some, as you say, woke, aware. What, like, oh my God, this is true now, right? Because remember, the world has stopped, so to speak. So that's the news. That's what, and it did happen. And what I draw the parallels and the similarities is that the same means how George Floyd was killed was the same means what Colin Kaepernick was standing for. And the same thing, the kneeling. Dude, that was. I don't know the history on this, I don't know the stats on this, but try this on. From my understanding, that was the first person that I've seen, that I can remember in a long time, been killed in the hands of police, and it wasn't via handgun, a taser, or an impact weapon. When I say impact weapon, I mean like a baton, a flashlight, or whatever people use, or it was a personal body weapon, man. Did y'all get that?
I do, 100%.
And the world saw that. 8 minutes, 36, it's a time. I don't even know me personally, from what I do, I have not watched the video front to back. I can't, okay? Because in my department, we're trained, there's something called positional fixation. And that's the same thing. If I put you down on your back, on your stomach, Charles, I have your hands behind your back, that cuts off your air circulation in that position. And if I have pressure on your legs and your back and on your neck, that's gonna be a bad day for you. And I could tell you in great shape. I've seen you work out, right? That's how we met at the gym, right? I could tell it's gonna be a bad day for you. So I can't speak for what the policy is in that department, but we don't teach that. But people deal with us here in the Bay like we do that. If I cuff somebody, we on the ground with them, first thing we do, all right, get them up. We gotta get the airway open. We're trained that way. That's our agency. I don't know about other agencies. Now, if that was policy, Would you do your grandmama like that? Mm-mm. Would you do your daughter like that? Would you do your son like that? So why would you do you like that? That's how I look at shit. Mm-hmm. I look at shit like, man, I'm gonna treat you with the same fervor and respect as I'm gonna treat my son. I'm not gonna kill my son. I may want to kill him. You know what I'm saying? I may want to knock him to the floor, but I'm not gonna do that, right? I'm gonna treat him with the same love, respect, and amount of discipline it takes to get my point across, and that he or she grows from that.
Right.
But if that was your policy and agency, I don't care if you put it on the policy, the rest of the world and the optics of it, we can see that that's fucking wrong. Period. It's get him up. He need to breathe. Get his air open. He can't breathe, man. I mean, and I get all that he on drugs and all that stuff, but it is what it is. You know, so it just, that's the stuff that I see. And look, I'll be the first to say that as in law enforcement, what I've seen over the last 20 years is that, you know, when I grew up, y'all, I grew up in the 80s, you know, I'm a 70s baby, I grew up in the 80s, early 90s, you know, my heydays. We saw adults, man, we were respectful, man. We saw, you straighten up, you know, you stop cussing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know? These kids today, they ain't scared of shit. They don't care I got a gun. Mm-hmm. They probably had a gun pointed at them. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. That don't mean shit to them. Mm-hmm. So how we used to do shit don't work no more. You gotta learn to talk to people. That's my perspective. Yeah. We have to change. Right? Now I will say this, that I'm with police reform, but it's all the sort of things that we've been talking about today, but also there's need to be public reform. Mm-hmm. Right? I need to know, police need to know, what is it that you guys as Joe Citizen that you would say, that was reasonable, or okay, I see that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
You don't do the job.
Yeah.
Right? So what would you say is that you would back somebody like, okay, that was enough. Mm-hmm. That was enough to gain what he needed to do to affect the rest. But the reform, because watch this, what I do see is that because we're fighting over resources, jobs, housing, things of that nature, which is what? A lot of shit that we do is not police shit, it's social. Mm-hmm. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
It's social shit, man.
It's called social justice. Food.
Right? So it's like, we're trying to do this, and you got people that don't want to can't comply because whatever their heads in places, mental health. Right. Mm-hmm. We need reform together. We need like, okay, what is your expectation of me? And then watch this. Some people's expectations of what we do and how we do the job is not realistic. Let's just be fair. It's not. I've had conversations where I'm talking with you, with people on planes. I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but what you're saying is not realistic. Right. And you know, and you hear like, we want you to shoot him up. We're not trained to shoot people in the arm. Right. We're not trained to shoot people in the leg. We're trained to incapacitate, to stop the threat. That's the training. Now, you want to argue training tactics? Training tactics, that's fine. You see what I'm saying? You want to give us some nets to shoot out of the car and shit, that's fine. You want us to do a freeze gun, like Batman? Let's do it. Because at the end of the day, I just want you to go home. I want to be safe, and I'm going home. And I want to manage your expectations. And look, my job, member, is just to enforce. This is to get you to the judge. That's the punishing side. My job is to compile a report of why we should charge you.
I think most civilians don't understand that.
They don't understand that, and it's their job to choose to punish you, to charge you. I compile the evidence. That's my job, man. We have this joke. We're glorified reporters. That's what we are.
We're glorified reporters. That's a good one.
That's hilarious.
That's a good one, bro. I appreciate this. This is a good way to end, ladies and gentlemen. But before we do end it, Carl, anything you want to say?
Yeah. No, thank you so much, Lou. I think this is a huge component that a lot of people need to see. They see cops, they see all this bad stuff, and they automatically perceive that all cops are this way.
It's true.
And that's why I love the fact that you're here. Thank you so much for being here. And you're able to show, you know, what true being a cop, real cop means.
It's what it's about, man. It's the people.
That's a good word, real cop.
Real cop.
I think, But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode, because I certainly did, being front row seat with this gentleman right here. It was just a lucky day for me, I guess, to run across this gentleman right here to my left.
Man, yeah, for sure.
And at the same time, I really would like for this episode to be an episode that's going to be memorable for really just this podcast. And at the same time, if you guys took away something, please subscribe, like something, comment something. We want to spark a dialogue, because today, I've always said this from the first time we ever spoke, oppression and racism doesn't just have to come with your skin color. Sure. It's feeling like you don't have a voice and you don't empower yourself and the other people around you. And this is why we created this platform with a little bit of a style in it with hookah, right? With the gentleman's cigar.
That's right.
But at the same time, it's...
Maybe next time hookah.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe next time hookah. But at the same time, we sincerely hope, that you took a lot of different perspective now from a cop, a real cop that understands how it is to be a civilian. Because I was thinking about this while he was talking, is that being a cop, you have an opportunity to come home as a civilian. But for us civilians, we only have the opportunity to be a civilian. And so there's a discrepancy of what we don't understand from their work of line. And this is why we brought this topic today. So Lou, anything that you want to say to the public back home? Again, appreciate you for being here, because you didn't have to do this. I know you're serving the community. By the way, thank you for your service. Thank you. And at the same time, I know that, things that you could have said could possibly be controversial to some untrained ears.
And that's fine. That's fine. But that's what sparks the debate. And I'm open. I'm saying I'm open for the experiences and all that. I'm just telling you my side. That's right. It's my perspective. And I've done this. I'm doing this. I've done this over nearly 20 years, I want to first off thank y'all for, creating this platform for me to talk. And as I said off camera, you saw something in me from our conversation. You looked at this opportunity to help your fans, to help people that you are in contact with, your audience, And so I'm hoping that it helped in some way, and I'm open, man. I'm open for debate. And this is just the beginning. I hope you guys bring me back, man, to share different things. Because there's other stuff that we haven't even gotten into about everything. There's a lot of stuff. And watch this. I believe that change starts with us. It starts with us. It starts with having that dialogue and working together, because we do need to improve police relations. I want not just you to feel safe. I want people who don't feel safe to feel safe. And be able to do that, because also too, that's how we also solve crimes, right? We by the rapport and relationships we build, right? Some people may not feel like, man, officer, I can't talk to you right now, but maybe I'll call you later, because I can't be seen talking to you. But most people I've talked to, they want justice too. They want stuff resolved too. They want their community safe. We want the same things. Man, I love to come to work all day and just, worry about what I'm drinking for coffee.
So it's true, donut and coffee. But ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our episode. Thank you for tuning in to Hookah Bout It. Please follow us, subscribe, like, share, comment in there. Let us know what you feel about this episode. And if you have any topic ideas that you want to bring into this episode, please let us know. Because trust me, we're going to have more coming in for you guys. So that said, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Peace.